Okay. All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Reverend Donna. I'm sorry I jumped in late. I'm sorry.
This has happened a couple of times now. Do we need to change the time of the meeting
No, no. I think
this
it's
time?
okay. I was tidying something up, so
Okay. What did you have on your agenda for today?
yeah, not much. I'm focused on our meeting tomorrow and the mid-unit evaluation.
Okay.
Um, and I'm almost through, but I those questions are things one needs to really sit back and you know get the evaluation out the way it ought to be. So I've been asking questions, really looking at how we've been progressing so far.
Okay.
And, I was thinking you read my reflection for the week.
Yes.
Yeah, I was meaning to bring it up. You know, I didn't expect and how my reaction, you know, was at being thrown out from that visit. It shocked me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if having read it, how you would expect your students to. Did I comport myself well, or did I cave in so easily? Did I? I didn't know how you would suggest one reacts because what was uppermost on my mind is the authority of a care recipient. Yes, you know, probably should I have stayed and asked further questions why, you know, because it was very, very dramatic. So I don't know. I'm wondering what your opinion would be, what suggestions, how we want to react in such a situation.
Yeah. What was the most difficult part of it for you?
Yeah, I personally, the ego, one would be embarrassed.
Okay.
So I was.
Okay.
It's not, but that was not the first. I mentioned it. I froze. I was rooted to the spot. So it took, a few seconds for me to recover myself. And is this really happening? What should
Yeah.
I, what should I do? You know?
Right. When you so are you saying the most difficult part for you was the shock?
Yeah, I was embarrassed. So,
Okay.
uh, naturally, what you wouldn't expect. I didn't expect it. There was nothing, to suggest that that will happen. So I didn't know what played out, and I put it there so that we can have a conversation. You can, as a professional, as a teacher, say, okay, oh, why didn't you react this well? Why did you, or did you chicken out? Did I chicken out? So
Well, I can't tell about the chicken out part because I wasn't clear from what you wrote if he responded when you said if you could follow up at another time. Did he respond to that?
no, no,
Okay.
no.
So his response was silence.
Yeah,
Okay.
he had shut down. It
Mhm.
wasn't communication, and that was me. Trying to finding something to say actually. you know.
Right.
So I don't know.
I appreciate that can be difficult to hear, you know, the way it was delivered, but it was very clear that he did not desire spiritual care. As you noted, he was exercising his authority and control in an environment where he has a limited authority and control. So it the what was the embarrassing part? You asked and he answered.
Yeah, maybe it's a cultural thing or something. Maybe saving face. I was like, eh, in Africa, being a priest, we we have a certain, the people almost, you know, we have a way of, even if they don't want you or like you or don't, they give you the seed, that authority to you. You are recognized. You are somehow, but getting it, it hit hard and it hit home for me.
Right.
Probably that's why I said maybe it's a cultural thing.
Well,
Maybe Africa.
I do think you're right. The cultural piece does matter because it sounds like you have an expectation of being received, even if the person doesn't want it, right?
So,
And so you encounter someone who answers your question honestly, and they say no, they don't want it, and that leaves you feeling what?
well, probably if I had the ability to blush, I would have been red in the face. But it wasn't good.
That's why I asked you what was the most difficult part? Was it his volume? What was the most difficult part?
I didn't want to put it down, but I was, could it be a certain stereotype? Or is it the chaplain or the person? You know, that's what I can factor, you know. Is it my person? Or
How about it's he didn't want spiritual care?
yeah, and that's what I narrowed it down to. But thinking further, perhaps if it were another chaplain that walked in, I
Did
don't
you
know.
walk in? That was my other question. Did you actually walk all the way in, or were you still at the door?
And just opening,
You just
advan
opened the
open the door. First of all, as I mentioned it, I sanitized, gave a knock, you know, opened it, just came in, trying to advance and introduce myself.
Okay. So that's helpful because that helps me. So you actually entered the room. So you sanitize your hands outside the room or in the room.
Outside, the sanitizers are just by the door.
So then you entered the room. You entered the room and then you knocked?
No, I knocked, then opened and entered.
Okay, got it. Okay. So I wondered myself why you didn't wait for a response to your knock. So you knocked and entered. You knocked, he didn't say come in.
I'm often, sometimes you may not hear, patients are not, some many are sick, many are too, you know, they can't communicate
Okay.
normally. So, but to courtesy, that's knock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that that's a helpful dynamic because you are managing that in the hospital. I'm knocking and sort of slowly entering, trying to hear if the person can respond, tell me come in or no. And in his case, you entered. He didn't invite you in. and then you offered spiritual care, or you didn't even get to offer it and he just flew off the handle. No, you introduced yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You greeted him
Mm-hmm.
and you introduced, and he made it very clear, get out. Yeah. So it didn't seem to me that it was about you personally. That was the only question I had. How did that feel? That's why I said, what was the most difficult part for you? To enter the room after not having been invited by someone who clearly had the ability to invite you in the room. It's one thing you enter the room, someone is on a ventilator, right, or oxygen, and they can't raise their voice very loud. But he definitely could have invited you in, but didn't.
So it's like an intrusion into his
Absolutely.
space.
That's what it seemed like to me. And maybe the volume came out of reflection of feeling intruded on. But it's the status of the hospital. People are going and coming and everybody's not knocking. You know, that's the reality of his situation, which can be very frustrating and humiliating. It can make him very angry that he doesn't have the autonomy. Um, and although it is impactful to put you out, it's the least impactful. It's in a way because it's not the doctor or someone who has his food or someone who has his medicine. And so putting you out may be the least detrimental for him. And so he exercised his agency to do that.
Wow, that's a good analysis. Hmm. Hmm. It's okay.
I understand that doesn't feel great. And when you add your cultural awareness of an expectation of being received whenever you show up, whether people want it or not, it's certainly not his cultural context. And so you came alongside him. And in his perspective, he could decline, and that forcefully, with clarity. And I can understand if all he said was get out, why you would then say, would you like me to come back at another time? You still weren't clear if he was rejecting all spiritual care services or if he just wanted you out in that moment. And I thought that was a compassionate thing to do, to say, is there a better time for me to come back? Right. And then he responded to that. And his response, to that was silence, which pretty much says no.
Interesting.
You know, I know we don't have time, but I did wonder, in your verbatim that you presented, I wondered why you shared that verbatim and what was the most significant thing for you in that verbatim last week. And so that's why it was important to me to ask, what was the most impactful part of this for you this week? So I can get a good handle on what you need. So for this one, I would encourage you to not take it personal.
Thank you. It's good I have somebody I could share this with. So thank you. Thank
I,
you.
can you imagine he would have reacted that way no matter who it was?
Now I'm getting it. So,
Yeah.
and that helps me so that subsequently, I'll still, because we had this conversation. I told you that my confidence is, really, so this could deflate someone's confidence. And
Mhm.
if I begin to, think it's something personal, could deflate me. Yeah, and the verbatim you mentioned, I he talked about, a care recipient exercising agency, yes. And I also try to, within the verbatim, also, you know, try to uh, see the chaplain, the caregiver, as an advocate, you know,
Mhm.
and talking about the social justice, even if we don't fix. And you mentioned it, the categories on collaboration.
Mhm.
Uh, and that was an area I didn't look at that outcome, but it really played out. So I didn't go out to fix anything, but I
Mhm.
contacted the, you know, those directly in charge and made sure they came into the situation.
Mhm.
So
Very good.
that was me being the advocate.
So one of the things I would encourage you in a moment, especially of advocacy, is to still do your spiritual care assessment and determine if there are any spiritual unmet needs. So, there's excellent assessment of the role of advocacy, but I would encourage you to also make sure you determine if there are any spiritual needs that you can meet. Because it and for this reflection, some of the things I think you did well, this cleaning of your hands, sanitizing your hands before you enter, knocking before you enter, introducing yourself and asking if you can visit, and then not insisting, but offering an alternative to sort of clarify why, but not then turning around and saying, well, why don't you want to meet with me? Because given the clarity of the patient that he did not want to meet, I think might have done more harm to say, well, why don't you want to meet with me? In that moment, it didn't seem like that would have been helpful because he was clear for whatever reason. Now, if you round and he's still there, and I don't know if he's still at the hospital, then you have to decide, would you go back and offer again?
Yeah, you're correct. If I'm able to assess these circumstances and properly, there'll be no harm. Also, probably the person might be indisposed at the moment. The person might be, under the weather in some way or the other. Something fishy or whatever could be cloud and
Right.
determine their reaction. So it's better always to give somebody some time.
Mm-hmm. Because you never know what was going on in that moment. But what you do know is he was clear he did not want to visit, and you can't force a visit. Yeah, I think that's very good. So as we get to the end of our time, let me say I need you to make sure that this time is a time where you can be on time. You are putting your education in jeopardy by not completing the IS groups. And filling that time. So if this time doesn't work for you, let me know. I will change my schedule to get a better time that'll work for you because I want us to have plenty of time to have these conversations. And I'm glad you've bounced back from from that visit. I'm glad you wrote it up and did some reflecting on it and that you're able to say, you know what? This I'm not going to take it personal. This was him exercising his agency in a very vulnerable situation. And I'm glad it was you because you accepted it. You sought to clarify, so you offered because he could have said, "Yeah, come back tomorrow." You gave him the opportunity, and again, his silence communicated no because he heard you. So his silence communicated no, and you respected that. You respected that. And so I might not even go back. I might not because I'm embarrassed, not because I'm ashamed or no, but because I offered in that moment, would you like me to come back later? And the silence might suggest to me, no. He's saying he does not want me to come back later. But that's where I would seek collaboration. He has a nurse, right? A social worker, whomever. I might say, I tried to visit. He immediately made it clear he didn't want to visit. Do you think I should go back or no? And they may have insight, okay? Because you're not in it by yourself. All right. I will see you tomorrow.
It's okay.
All right.
A quick one. My interfaith reflection. Would
Yes.
I? Does that one? That will I still present the normal one?
No, you want that one to count for yours?
Probably. I just it's up to
Because
you.
my understanding was Alice was switching with you. You were
Okay,
taking her date and she was taking your date.
it's all right.
So
Okay,
you're
thank
good.
you.
All right. I'll see you
Mm,
tomorrow.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
time. Bye.
All right.